Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS Wonderful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Will tells Ivy to leave her alone. He is upset with her because of what she did to Dylan. The truth always comes out. For Will Spencer it comes out at a very bad time. Now he sees things clearly. It changes what he thought about being loyal his family and keeping quiet. At first Will just felt a little bad. Then he realized something terrible. Ivy was mean to Dylan on purpose. It hurt him very badly. What Ivy did to Dylan is worse than anyone thought. Will thinks about how bad Ivy's actions were, and it makes him very angry. Ivy's actions toward Dylan were very cruel. They caused a lot of damage. Will is trying to figure out what is going on by putting little bits of information that other people are too scared to talk about or are hiding on purpose. Now that he knows some things, he feels like he has to do something about it. He realizes that knowing what is really going on means he cannot just sit back and do nothing anymore. He cannot just keep quiet. Think that is the same as not taking sides. In the world of the Forrester and Spencer families, people often think that not saying anything is a sign of being strong. Will is learning that not saying anything can be just as bad as doing something to hurt someone on purpose. The Forrester and Spencer families are very good at keeping quiet. Will knows that this is not always a good thing. Dylan's absence has really bothered the people who actually cared about Dylan. At first people thought Dylan just needed some space or a fresh start, but over time it became clear that something was really wrong. There were clues like when Dylan did not return calls, or when conversations were cut off, or when Dylan just stopped being emotional with people and nobody really thought much of it then. Dylan did not just move away from town, Dylan actually ran away from town. As Will thinks back to those times, going over moments that used to seem like no big deal, it becomes really obvious what was going on. Dylan was not trying to get to something, Dylan was just trying to get away from something. Will was running away from something that hurt him a lot. This thing was made to make him feel like he was nothing, like he did not matter. Nobody wanted him. When Will figured this out, it made him stronger in ways he did not see coming. He started to feel angry or worried, and that anger turned into a decision to do something about it. Will felt this way because of the thing he was trying to escape, and it was changing him. Ivy is not easy to figure out. That is what makes her so bad. She never seemed really mean, never yelled or got into a fight with Dylan in front of people. Ivy's way of doing things was quiet and careful. She would tell people some of the truth, but not all of it. She made people think she was being helpful. Really, she was hurting Dylan's feelings and making him doubt himself. Ivy made Dylan wonder if he was good enough, if he had a future, and if the people he cared about really cared about him. Ivy's role in all of this is still not clear. It is clear that she is very good at making people think she is nice when she is not. When Dylan started to pull, Ivy had already changed the story. She made it seem like Dylan was leaving because he wanted to, not because of anything she did. Now Will understands that people can be manipulative without being mean. Sometimes they pretend to care about you. They are really just trying to control the situation. Will sees that manipulation can be sneaky, like when someone says they are doing something for your good but really they are just doing it to get what they want, like Ivy did with Dylan. What really gets to Will is that Ivy was never really by herself, even if she did things on her own. The place where she was able to do what she wanted without anyone stopping her is a place where who has powers more important than what is true. In this place people do not care if someone gets hurt long as they get what they want or stay safe. Will has been living in this world his life, but now he has to deal with it directly. The thing that shakes Will the most is this realization about Ivy and the world she lived in. Will knows now that being part of a family means he has to look out for the people in his family, even if they are doing something bad. Will does not want to do that anymore. He does not want to be comfortable if it means someone else is hurting. Will is not willing to do things that hurt people just to help his family. Being part of his family is not as important to Will as doing what is right. Will is tired of his family getting away with things just because they're powerful. Ivy's actions are now totally clear to everyone. Will is really upset about what Ivy did. He does not act on impulse. He is very serious about this. Will does not want to get revenge on Ivy. What Will wants is for Ivy to be held accountable for what she did. To Will, there is a difference between revenge and accountability. This difference is very important to him. Ivy did something wrong, and saying sorry will not make it okay. Ivy cannot just expect everything to be fine. Will makes it very clear to Ivy that she cannot control Dylan or hurt Dylan anymore. Will's presence and the way he talks to Ivy show that he is not going to back down. Ivy is not allowed to define who Dylan is or what Dylan does. Dylan is not Ivy's to hurt or control, and Will is making sure Ivy knows that. The message is very clear: the control she thought she had is really. If she tries to get it back, people will fight against her. This is not just someone being angry, it is a limit that people have set, and they are completely sure about it. They are saying that the power she believed she had over something is gone, and the message is that any attempt by her to get this power back will be met with resistance from people who are not going to back down. Will's confrontation has an impact that goes way beyond Ivy. People who thought Dylan leaving was just being dramatic or not a big deal are now thinking twice about what they thought. They have to talk about things they did not want to talk about before. This is not comfortable for them, for the people who did not want to know what really happened. Will's confrontation shows that it is easy to ignore things when they do not happen to you, but it is hard to justify doing nothing when you know what is really going on with Will's situation and how it affects Dylan and Ivy. Will's actions make people think about how they treated Dylan and Ivy. Now they have to deal with Will's confrontation and its consequences. In standing up to Ivy, Will inadvertently holds up a mirror to the entire community, reflecting its failures back at itself. Dylan's story is different now. His choice to leave does not seem like a thing anymore. It seems like he did what he had to do to survive. Will is starting to see that sometimes the hardest thing to do is stay in a place where people do not understand you. So Will wants to make sure Dylan is okay even if he is not there. Will does not know if Dylan will come back or if he should come back. If Dylan does come back, things have to be different for him. Dylan's peace is what matters to Will. He wants to protect that. The cycle of people taking advantage of Will and being really mean to him in a way has to stop now. Even if it means Will loses some friends that he thought would always be there, for him it is okay. Will has to put an end to this cycle of manipulation and quiet cruelty. Know what happens to his relationships. The cycle of manipulation and quiet cruelty has to end for Will. Ivy is dealing with a version of herself that she has tried to avoid for a time. Will is not backing down. This means Ivy cannot make the situation look better for herself. Maybe for the time Ivy has to deal with what happens when she manipulates people's emotions. She sees that her actions really hurt someone and made them leave town and be alone. Ivy has to decide if she will say sorry for what she did or keep making excuses. Either way, things have changed between Ivy and Will. They cannot go back to the way they were. Ivy and her actions are the reason for this change. The woman is not in charge of what's happening anymore, and that really bothers her. She did not think it would affect her this much. The narrative is something that's very important to the woman, and now the woman is not in control of the narrative. This makes the woman feel very uncomfortable. The situation is still really tough for everyone. It is hard for people who used to trust each other to be around one another. Will did something. People have different opinions about it. Some people think Will is very brave because he stood up for someone who could not defend themselves. They like what Will did. Other people think Will was foolish and caused problems that did not need to happen. Will is okay with people feeling either way about what he did. He knows that doing what you think is right does not always mean everyone will agree with you. Will accepts this. Is still at peace with his decision. What is important to him is that Dylan's truth is now out, in the open, and not hidden by what someone else wants. Dylan's truth is what matters. It should not be covered up by someone else's plans. Dylan's truth is free to be seen and heard. As time goes by, the words "leave her alone" mean something than just a warning. They are a statement. This statement shows that Will does not want anyone to make Ivy's feelings seem like they are not a deal. It is a line that Will draws not just for Ivy, for anyone who thinks they can hurt people and get away with it. The bold and the beautiful is a place where people are always fighting for love and power. In this world, Will's decision to stand up for what's right reminds people that doing the right thing is important, even when it is hard. Will's stand is about the bold and the beautiful. It shows that the bold and the beautiful is a place where people can still do the right thing. This is a moment for Will. It is when he really becomes his person, not just a Spencer. He starts to think for himself and figure out what is right and wrong. After going through a time, Will comes out changed. He is more careful and more sure of what he wants. The kind of person he wants to be is someone who looks out for others, those who need help. Will wants to be a person and take care of people who are vulnerable. He does not want to be in charge just to boss people around, to make sure everyone is safe. When Will decides to stand up for Dylan even when Dylan is not around, it shows that saying what you think is important and not giving up can be a big deal, in a world where lots of people are talking. Will is doing this for Dylan. This is a thing that Will is doing for Dylan. In the end, the fallout from Ivy's actions and Will's response continues to unfold, leaving relationships strained and truths exposed. But one thing remains certain. Dylan's pain is no longer invisible, and Ivy's influence over his life has been firmly dismantled. The story does not end with resolution, but with the promise that silence will no longer be mistaken for peace, and that standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, can change the course of lives forever. The thing with Will and Ivy does not go away. It stays with them like a fire that keeps burning. This fire gets into parts of their lives that they thought were not affected. What Will said and what he did not take back makes everyone think about some things. They have to think about how they're involved in things they do not want to be and how people can get hurt without realizing it. They also have to think about how people can use their power to hurt others and make it seem like it is the person's choice. After what happened, Ivy starts to feel alone. She did not think she would be this alone. The situation with Will and Ivy, it just does not go away, it keeps affecting them. It affects Ivy in a big way. People who used to be supportive of Ivy now hold back. They think carefully about what they say. They are not sure if they still want to be on Ivy's side. This change is not obvious. It is clear. Ivy notices it when she talks to people, when there are pauses in the conversation and when people look at her for a little long. Ivy feels this change in every conversation, every time someone stops talking and every time someone looks at her. For Will, it is getting clearer every day that taking a stand is going to cost him something. His family members are asking him questions about why he's doing this. They think that Will did not understand what was going on, or that his feelings are getting in the way of his decision. Some people are saying that bringing up Dylan's pain again is just going to hurt him all again, and that time might have made it better. Will is listening to what they have to say. He is not changing his mind. Will now knows that if you try to heal from something by pretending it did not happen, it is not going to last. Dylan did not say anything after he left town. This does not mean he forgot what happened. It means he learned to keep things to himself. He did not want to tell people what really happened to him. This is what makes Will keep going. Will thinks about what happened to Dylan and it helps him to keep moving. When Will is not sure what to do, he remembers what Dylan went through, and it helps him to stay strong. Dylan's silence is what keeps Will going even when things get tough. Dylan is not around. Feels really bad when Will says his name out loud. When Will tries to stick up for Dylan, he starts to realize that nobody really understood Dylan even when he was there. People always talked about what Dylan was doing wrong. They said he should try harder to make others happy or that he was not doing what they wanted him to do. Nobody thought about what they were doing wrong. Ivy was able to control people because she said things that Dylan already felt about himself. Will gets it now. Ivy did not create Dylan's insecurities. She used the ones Dylan already had. Ivy made them stronger. Used them against Dylan. She did this until Dylan thought that running away was the thing to do. Dylan's insecurities were like tools that Ivy used to hurt Dylan. Will understands that Ivy took advantage of Dylan's weaknesses and made them worse. This made Dylan feel like escape was the option for Dylan. Will starts to see things when it comes to being responsible. He wonders how times he has ignored signs that someone is struggling just because helping them would have been a hassle. Thinking about this is not easy for Will. It helps him to change. Will becomes more careful about how he treats people. He does not dismiss their feelings as overly dramatic. People notice the difference in Will. Will is more considerate and thoughtful. This is because Will is taking the time to really think about how he interacts with people, including Will being more aware of the emotional discomfort that people may be feeling. The way Will is now is a change from how Will used to be. For some people it is maturity, for others it is tension, but for Will it feels like clarity, which is painful, but it is necessary clarity for Will. Ivy is having a time taking back control of her own story. She tries to make the situation seem like it is not that bad by saying it is all a big misunderstanding that people are talking about too much. Every time she tries to do this, it does not sound very believable. This is because what Will says about what happened is consistent, and it is becoming clear that the way Dylan acted before he left is very similar to what Will said he did. Ivy has to face the fact that when someone is manipulating others and it becomes known, that person loses their power over them. Ivy is dealing with the reality that manipulation loses its power when it is exposed. This is what is happening with Ivy and her situation with Dylan and Will. This person used to think that what they were doing was a plan, but now it just seems like they are trying too hard. The more they try to explain themselves, the alone the person feels. The person is trying to make excuses for what they're doing, but it is not working and people are starting to stay away from them. Ivy is dealing with a lot of emotions. Sometimes she feels bad about what she did. It does not last. She feels guilty for a while, then she pushes those feelings away. If Ivy says she is sorry, she has to change the way she thinks about herself. She has to stop being the person who always does the thing, who always has an excuse, who thinks that what she wants is more important than how others feel. Will does not accept Ivy's explanations. That makes her think about herself in a different way. Ivy cannot ignore what Will is saying about her. The Ivy she thinks she is not the same person Will sees. Ivy is struggling with this. This is a question. Will things get better or will they get worse? One thing is for sure, people are starting to think about the situation. That is the first step. The outcome is still not clear. The process of figuring things out has started with this new development, and this new development is what we will be watching closely, as this new development is very important to the future of the situation. When people find out, they start getting in touch with Will. They do it quietly and carefully. Some people tell Will that they went through things that were similar to what Dylan went through. They felt bad or like someone was taking advantage of them. They did not know how to talk about it at the time. These talks make Will think that what happened to Dylan is not the time something like that happened. Will thinks it is part of a problem that people do not talk about. The conversations with people make Will believe that Dylan's story and the other stories are connected. Dylan's story is not alone, it is part of a pattern that happens when people are silent. Each time Will hears a confession, it makes him more determined. He starts to defend Dylan in a way. He does not want people to ignore the hurt that someone feels just because you cannot see it. Will thinks that emotional hurt is just as bad as hurt, even if you cannot see the scars. He wants to make sure that people take harm seriously and do not dismiss it. People are talking about Dylan coming in quiet voices. Some people think that if Dylan and the others are apart for a time, it will make the bad things that happen less hurtful. Other people are scared that if Dylan comes back, it will make the old wounds hurt again. Will is thinking about this in a way, and he is a little hopeful. He does not think that Dylan being gone is a thing, or that coming back will make everything okay. Dylan coming back is what Will is thinking about. Will wants to make sure that if Dylan comes back, he will feel safe and not get hurt again. Dylan returning is what is important to Will. So that means we have to set limits and stick to them, even if that makes some people uncomfortable, because they do not like to be held responsible for their actions and they would rather just do what is easy. Setting these boundaries can cause problems with people who prefer to do what feels good instead of doing what is right, and that is okay because accountability is important, and so are clear boundaries. When it is quiet, Will thinks about how this experience has changed the way he sees himself. He has always known about his family name and what people expect from him because of it. Now Will understands that what his family has passed down is not just about what they had or what people think of them. It is about what Will does when he sees something's not fair, especially when keeping things the same helps the people who are already in charge. Will wants to be known for what he believes in, not for the power his family has. He wants to be known for the things he will not give in on, like his principles. Will chooses to define Will by the choices Will makes, not by the power Will gets from his family. Dylan is the heart of the story even when he is not there. The pain that Dylan feels is what everything else is seen through. Every time someone talks to each other, they think about how Dylan would feel. Every decision they make is because of what happened to Dylan. Will often thinks about whether Dylan knows that someone finally understood what really happened to him. Someone did not let people change Dylan's story or forget about it. This makes Will feel two things. He feels hope that Dylan will come back one day because he feels safe. He also feels sad that Dylan had to leave for people to really understand what Dylan went through. Dylan's story is still important even when Dylan is not there. The people around Dylan think about what he went through. They wish Dylan would come back. Things are still pretty tense. People who used to be friends with Ivy just because it was easy are now starting to back. On the hand, some people are secretly supporting Will. You can see that some friendships were real and some were out of fear or habit. Now that everything is changing, you can see what is really going on. Some of these relationships are very fragile while others are actually very strong. The truth is coming out now. It is hard to hide it again. People are being honest. That is changing everything. The truth that has been spoken is not going to be forgotten. In this situation, Ivy and Will are at the center of what is happening. The phrase "leave her alone" means a lot of things as time goes by. It is not about keeping Dylan safe from Ivy's influence anymore. It is also about respecting the boundaries.